we had a really good show this morning. We call the first half of it, the living. The second half we like to call the life, because if you make a living, you need to have a life, and that's what
good.
we
I
try to.
thought you were going to say the first half is the living, and when I show up, it's the dead. I'm glad it's not. That was a close one.
How you doing over there, by the way, with that brand new gorgeous microphone?
I know. It's so pretty. It sounds so much better. I love it. I'm starting to feel professional. 46 years in, and I'm starting to feel professional, guys.
Maybe. By the way, don't get too hooked into professional, man. That's when you lose your soul of a child, man. you don't want that stuff going on. Hey,
I am excited. It's been fun to listen to you guys this morning. Great show. Fun to step in here too. I like yesterday, Jim, that you said the first half is trucking centric and the second half is trucking adjacent, meaning anything. That's my favorite thing, especially when I'm writing songs. The truck drivers are like, thanks for remembering that we like things other than just trucks. I'm like, you're welcome, because you are also a human being that's out on the road experiencing stuff. So we're talking to some really cool authors today. Carew is joining us first at a very exciting book, especially on this Father's Day weekend. We're talking legacy, we're talking love, we're talking life, and all that you leave behind, and the things that you want to say to those. And Jim, I said this on Mother's Day. I say it on Mother's Day every year. I will say it on Father's Day as well. You don't have to be a blood father to be a father figure. So I like to celebrate men sort of in general today, the men that step up in the lives of their children, their stepchildren, their, in your case, Jim, your nephews. Dre, you've got stepdaddy vibes going on for your girlfriend's kids, or sometimes that's, taking care of a neighbor's kids, whatever it is. I think it should be called Father Figure Day, or maybe that's another holiday, but that's what I want to celebrate and want to dive into this book today.
Well, no, we were talking about Kevin Lindsay as well, about the idea that when he spoke about his two grandfathers, I mean, he might as well have been speaking about, Dad 1.0 and Dad 2.0 as well.
Yeah.
All this stuff over the course of the week. The number and the idea that they're, people talk about there's a crisis with men, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of great men out there doing a lot of great things for a lot of kids and making the miracle happen. Carew Papritz is one of them. Award-winning author of the best-selling inspirational book, The Legacy Letters, innovative literacy efforts. And this, as you know, Lindsay, this is my jam.
Yeah, buddy.
Inspiring kids to read. He created I Love to Read and the first ever book signings through CarewTube video series. He's also the creator of National Thank You Letter Day. Come on, man.
We love a national day around here.
And we love Guinness World Records, the world's largest thank you letter. An educational thought leader, Papritz continues his personal passion to teach people of all ages about personal and global legacy issues. He's been on Kelly Clarkson's show. He's been on the HuffPost, Reader's Digest. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. And it's our pleasure to welcome Carew this morning. How are you?
Wow, that's an intro. God, I am doing...
We're available to walk around with you and intro you walking into rooms if you'd like.
Oh, please. I'm there yesterday, so thanks, Lindsay. Great to be on the show, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, and I got to say, it's such a cool deal to be on your show. Years ago, I was on Road Dog Trucking. This was back in 2021, and I actually was a short-haul trucker up in the Pacific Northwest in Alaska, and it was the earliest interview I had ever done. It was a 4 a.m. interview, and I said, I'm going to do it come hell or high water, because there's no way I'm ever going to miss being interviewed by a trucking channel. So I'm honored to be back on back on, but on another trucking show. This is great.
Awesome. Yeah, you're on for the new, this is the launch of our new platform this week, where we're able to grow and expand and not be pigeonholed anymore. But so we love being able to introduce our drivers to writers and content that they can either listen to while rolling down the road and or, pick up and be inspired on their break. So, I mean, Carew, if you're cool, we're just going to dive in and we're going to go deep right away because...
Yep, go for it.
Okay, awesome. Love and legacy and everything in between. We're going to talk about some programs that you're working on. But I want to start just on this Father's Day weekend and dive in right away to what it means to be a father today versus, say, yesterday. And I think the old version of fatherhood, perhaps, and I'd love your take, was more about, let's say, protection and provision. But the new version, or at least in my new version and my woo-woo self-help head, is about presence and permission, I think. So like giving your kids permission to be exactly who they are. What do you think modern fatherhood is really about at its core?
Well, there's such a great question. And, I had to sort of ponder on that a little bit because, it seems to be, as I like to say, the world seems a little bit mystified these days at what makes a good man and a good father. And so I think that the timelessness, and not the old-fashionedness, but the timelessness of being a good dad is the same in 2025 as it is in 1999, 97, and so on and so forth. And what I mean by that are those values that make a good father: walking your talk, telling the truth, being a great example, being respectful to your wife, there's standing up for others. It just goes on and on. So those core values, living the golden rule, and showing your kids it's timeless. And yes, the permission structure and giving your kids more ways to be kids and whatnot I think that's great. But I think ultimately for guys trying to figure out, well, what does it mean in this day and age? The best of what it is to be a good man hasn't changed. It is timeless and not old-fashioned.
Let me just say this. Something that is so important about what you've said is that, we talk about how much fatherhood has changed. But then I keep thinking about, and I'll just give you an example because it is based on her dad, To Kill a Mockingbird and the character of Atticus Finch. There's so much about him in that movie, while being very, very, very stoic, very, very quiet, very much a man of his time, is also a perfect model of modern fatherhood, isn't it? I mean, we forget that, but that what is best about dads today, the best dads in the 30s and 40s and 50s in America, the best dads resemble the best dads today too. There are timeless.
I love that.
It's about clearing out the rest of the nonsense, the assumptions, and all that stuff, and getting back down to the idea of listening to your kids, talking when you need to, but giving them a path that they can walk together.
Sure. Yeah. And that's what we all want as human beings, as people. We want to be listened to. We want to be, especially as kids, we want to be protected. And being a good dad also means like knowing when to let your kids fall and when not to. I mean, I think that's one of the key things in terms of, we see a lot of overprotection these days. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, that's part of teaching about life, and appropriately fall, right? It's whatever age that is. But you got to learn how to fall, because you can't learn how to get back up unless you learn how to fall. And so that's another aspect of being a good dad.
Well, and I watched this show. I don't know if you've heard of Mike Birbiglia or not. He's a comedian and storyteller. Okay. I'm a big fan of him. I think you'd love him, actually, Carew, because he's a comedian, but he's telling the stories of his life. So he takes you on an emotional journey, and he's really about connection. And it really hit me last night, as it pertains to your book. He was talking about his dad just had a stroke and is in the hospital, and but it was a surgeon. He said, I don't have any memories of my dad talking about his work or what he did or seeing what he did. He said, my memories are, he's gone all day working. He shows up home at 8 o'clock at night. He sits down to read his book about war stories, and he screams, where are my keys? And he's like, that's it. Those are my memories of my dad. And he said, I hate that it took my dad having a stroke and me seeing him in the hospital and the vulnerability of me touching him and rubbing his back to find the connection. He's like, but I touched my dad's back, and this softness happened, and his lips sort of, showed a little bit of a smile and a tear in his eyes, and then we connected. And he's like, if it took him being 84 for us to connect, we got there, whatever it means. So I bring all that up to, talk to you about, for there are men out there, the men that haven't been perhaps encouraged to show their emotional or vulnerable side. It could feel so overwhelming to be like, how do I get from this to that? So what would you say to someone who doesn't know how to express themselves, or are sitting in their truck rolling their eyes at me right now for even talking about expressing themselves? I mean, it's baby steps, but baby steps are okay, right?
Right. No, my gosh. You think about how powerful, gosh, that's such a powerful scene, and what it means to connect. I love being out in the backcountry. I love being camping, and I'm sure a lot of guys out there do that. And talk about ways to connect with your kids. It can be through sports. It can be through whatever your hobby is, and you show your kids your hobby or whatever that is. And I think that's a form of, and again, I keep coming back to it over and over, walking your talk. So many people are saying, well, do as I say, not what as I do, right? You're being brought up. But I think walking your talk means being there with your kids, showing them your loves of life, what it means to be passionate about this. And as a consequence, you are connecting with your kids. Yeah, I do think the one older version of being a father where you just came home and, get the dinner on the table, get the kids to bed, it was just this rote machine of work and whatnot is, I think of all things, I would consider that a bit old fashioned, but I think there's a lot of guys that are really engaging on life. A lot of good dads out there trying to do their best to be there for their kids, and connecting but you're right. I think there's always more room to be there, to be able to talk to your kids and wow, guess what? To listen.
One of the things about listening that's so important is that as the kids get older, it becomes more and more important as they begin to develop their own voice to listen. You spend a lot of time talking to graduating students, kids who are graduating, which of course 15, 16, 17 years old, that's the last shot people have of what I call in-depth parenting. There's a moment later on that it kicks in again as people begin to realize how smart their parents were and go back for advice on how to raise their own kids. Mark Twain's famous adage.
Mark Twain, you took the words out of my mouth, man.
Yeah, the idea that my father was an idiot at 17. By the time I was 25, I couldn't believe how much he'd learned in 8 years.
Thank you, Jimmy Mac. That's one of my favorites all time.
And me too, by the way. I live in that reality. I live in that terrible reality. I haven't apologized to my dad enough for that one. But you speak to people a lot about that too, because people often forget that parenting continues between 15 and 20 in ways that you never had to deal with before then, because you used to be the voice of God, and now you are slowly becoming a human being to them as well too. What do you tell dads in particular when it comes to dealing with a 16-year-old girl? When it comes to dealing with, when it comes with a 14-year-old boy, and then how do you know when it's time to let them go?
Well, first of all, this interview is over, and I have to talk about a 16-year-old girl. No, so I have a great story on this. There's my son. He turned it was like 11 or 12, and up to that point, great relationship, and then it's the day, or the time of life when it was like, well, wait a second, what this fatherhood thing that I think I'm doing so well is not working anymore, because guess what? The cart got ahead of the horse here. And I was like, oh, brother, why are we not connecting? And so I really did a deep dive, and I just read a bunch of stuff, talked to a bunch of people, because I said, I need to get in front of this before it gets, in front of me, which it was. And I realized, and we're back to that key thing of listening, and they're trying to lead their lives now. They're experimenting with learning how to lead. And so you've got to start to let them lead. And so part of it was saying things like, hey, what do you think of this? If it pertained to the family, or what are your thoughts on this? And it's amazing because, once again, you're being listened to as if your thoughts have importance in the game of life. And that's like that first time you're starting, hey, I've got an opinion on what it means to be, and that might be a kid's opinion, but once you start that, the earlier you start that, they're going to realize, wow, you're giving me my just due respect. And that starts to open up that communication. Another one was really interesting. The top-down, version of dad is like, hey, we're heading out in 5 minutes. I tell you what, I would say, hey, around 3:00, we're going to head out. And that was like 6 hours before. And then I'd give a countdown, 3 hours. So there was no surprises. So it was always like, always letting them know what's going on. So it didn't feel top down.
Let me ask you something, by the way. I'm just doing, that's my dad's version. Lindsay's got a question, but my dad's version of what do you think of this is, let me ask you something. Yeah. And it would always mean he was actually going to ask for our honest opinion, or he was going to ask about something. I realized he was doing it, Lindsay. My dad was like, let me ask you something about like this movie. My dad knew about that movie.
Yeah,
But
it's his opener. It's his opening line, and that's okay.
yeah, it was awesome
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
actually wanted my opinion, and that was something I didn't realize until, when I realized my Mark Twain moment when I like, you crafty old dude, you figured it out.
Yeah.
And that's an
You
important
crafty
moment.
old dude.
You crafty old dude. Well, you're a crafty young dude, Carew. The book we're talking about, the legacy letters. The perspective of this aging, dying man trying to capture everything he wants his kids to know. So, Carew, I have a show here that's going to launch in July called We Should Write, and it's about the healing power of writing. It's delivered both sarcasm and soul, so we're not all deep, but I want to encourage people that whether you're an author or like you, a songwriter like myself, a playwright like Jimmy Mack, or just somebody who takes to journaling or putting notes in their phone, it's important to get your what out. I find it.
Yep.
It's do or die as far as I'm concerned. And as it pertains to your book, my sister and I gave my parents over Christmas a thing called Storyworth that they don't sponsor us, by the way, yet. Call us Storyworth. But it's prompts each week that they can tell stories, and it just sends them gentle reminders. Hey, and a question: what was dinner like for you growing up? All kinds of questions.
Yeah.
It's great, and I'm reading these from my parents, and I'm like, my parents are good storytellers and funny. I'm like learning more about my parents, and I don't even mean in what they're talking about in their stories. I'm talking about just like some personality traits about my parents that I'm learning just from seeing them just write in free form. So can you talk a little bit to our audience? Somebody might not be, Carew, that our truck driving audience, which is massive here, they have stories for days and days and days of things they've seen, but then also the struggle of being away from family. They've got a lot to talk about. Can you talk about, maybe give some encouragement to our listeners of how writing for you, really taking paper to pen, getting those thoughts out, has been life-changing or healing for you, dare I say?
Well, you
can also tell me that I'm stupid and that's not true. That's fine too.
No.
But I know that's not the case.
No, not by any stretch of the imagination. So this book, The Legacy Letters, and I got to sort of tell the guys out there, all the truckers out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's a series of letters written by this father who never lived to see his kids, and these letters become their practical, moral, and spiritual guidebook. It's a fictional book, but these letters become sort of their manual of life. And I actually wrote this. I'd written a few books before, and this was in my early 30s. And I had, like this. I worked in the film industry for a time.
Bless you.
Bless me. That was about it. Feature film industry. And I was at the top of the game and all this. And I tell you what, that the whole fast pace and the golden, the city lights and all that, it got to me, and I said, wow, I don't want to end up here because these people are miserable and making a lot of money. So I sort of went back to my roots. My granddad had a ranch growing up in Washington, so I was around that. And I did, you're going to like this, I did a drive about. The Aborigines do walkabout, so I did a drive about around the West, and I landed in this, what I call a 3-bar town, which has got 3 bars in southern Arizona along the border, and asked for a job, and they gave me a fencing job, and I was out there, and I was by myself, and then I ended up cowboying for the next 5 years on this ranch. I was the foreman. I was the top hand. And I picked up the pen again, so here was this if you're going to have a midlife crisis, I always say have it early. So that's what I did, and I picked up the pen.
Have it early, have it often.
Yeah, have it all. Yeah, don't have it often. Have it once and be one and done. But it was fascinating that for whatever reason I needed to say this to myself about passing on these ideas about life, and it was a very, very, very powerful time. And when the book came out, this was many years later, because it took quite a while to write all these letters, people responded it was a very amazingly powerful, because it was a very naked time, and they would respond to these letters. And after a while, I realized I wasn't the author anymore. I was the messenger to what people needed or felt. The other day, I was on the plane and talking to this fellow, and we were talking about fatherhood, because we were talking Father's Day. And I had a copy of the book, and I said, hey, I do this with people, just have some fun, pick up the book anywhere in the book. open it up, and generally you'll find what you need to read. He did, and he started crying right there in front of me. And he says, "I'm sorry." I says, "No, there's no sorry, man. This is the power of this thing." And it's did I write it? Well, it came through me. Let's put it that way. And so talk about emotional connection and the
I love
writing,
putting it that way.
And the powerful and how powerful words are. And guys and everyone out there who you think of a blank page like, I'm not going to write nothing. I tell you what, even a simple thing about, hey, I've been on the road. You can even write like half a page letter to your kid, slip it under their pillow and just say, I've been missing you and this, and I want to go out this weekend and and do something. Love, Papa. Boy, talk about the reality of words on paper. One of the most powerful things you could do. I do a thing with love letters at Valentine's Day, and just write a love letter to somebody and see how powerful that is. And not a big, long letter. Nothing big and long. Nothing. You don't have to get all bent out of shape with your piece of paper, but a few words on paper. That talk about walking your talk there.
I'll tell you this, the number of times I've walked into somebody's office, somebody's workspace, somebody's studio, and, you see all the pictures on the wall and all the awards they won. Inevitably, in a life that is well lived, there will be something taped up on the wall, handwritten from somebody, simply saying how much they love somebody. It's always there. Yeah. It's a great tell for a life well lived, because people don't understand the power of a personal thank you card. I just got recently back into doing it. And I am always kind of stunned at how it always kind of comes back. People will actually call you. They'll be like, "I can't believe you sent me this. This means so much to me." It is such it is literally the literary version of a grace note is the best way to kind of think of it, right? I mean, that's what it does, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's just amazing, that connection. And whether it be a thank you letter, whether it be a love letter, whether it be a note to your kids. I've been doing our son's away now at college, and so I write them. Like maybe once a month, and because that's what my grandparents did. You'd get a letter from grandma, and it's like, and now I just treasure those letters. I like to say it's the old fireman's version of what would you do if you had a fire? Well, I mean, nowadays you don't have to grab the photos because they're up in the cloud, but I'll tell you what, you grab your kids, your dogs, maybe not in that order, I don't know, and then you grab those letters because you can't replicate those, and it's the power of something handwritten, because it comes from your hand onto that paper, and then the ink and that paper hold you for a lifetime as long as that paper exists.
Just to be clear, we're not saying grab the letters before the kids. Grab the kids first, but have the letters handy. That's all we're saying.
Yes, have the letters handy. Yes. Thank you, Lindsay. Yes, I wanted to be clear and
You're
not
welcome.
sarcastic. So.
Do know which kids you'd pick first, though, especially on this Father's Day. Do know, like, if it came down to one. No, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Oedipus wrecks your life. Good God Almighty. Holy moly.
All right, so National Thank You Letter Day. Let's talk Guinness Book. Let's talk about, you're trying to, speaking of legacy, you're creating legacy, Carew, that this movement that you want to leave behind. I love, Jim and I talk about this a lot, Carew, when you're creating something, or you don't even realize you're creating something, and then all of a sudden you're sitting in the creation. So we got a couple minutes left, but I'd love for you to talk about the National Day of and the project and the legacy that you're creating that you hope people will ride the wave along with you here.
Yeah, it's just bringing the old fashioned, the time we started writing a thank you letter. And so I was teaching a kids this handwriting class at our little local ranch school, and I could just, where it's just, hey, a copy of this, copy on the whiteboard and all this, and I could see they're just bored to death. And so they know me for being sort of a crazy guy and doing different things. And I said, hey guys, I wanted to wake them up basically. I said, hey, what if we created the world's largest handwritten thank you letter the size of a football field? And, oh, Mr. Papritz, that would be great. And then I realized what I said, and I was like, oh, my God. Yeah, well, we did it. It was the size of a high school basketball gymnasium. And it's literally handwritten. If you go to nationalthankyouletterday.com, you can see it. But and we did it on November 14th, so it's in the month of thanks. It's right in the middle of the month, so you can give thanks to all month long. But the running joke is, what do you do with the world's largest handwritten thank you letter? Well, guess what? You have to send it. Next year, we sent it with the world's largest envelope, world's largest stamp. I mean, gigantic. The stamp is 15 by 25 feet. It's just a massive stamp, but it's a real stamp. And put it together. We sent it through the postal service. It's stamped. We actually had to roll it up like a giant burrito. It was 25 feet. You know, it was like 7 feet thick. It took 25 kids. We had to haul it out to the truck, and we sent it to our sister school, so it's all official. And as a result of that, we got a Guinness World Record and got on the Kelly Clarkson Show. But with all of that being said, all the hoopla, the coolest thing was the local postmaster gave us self-stamped cards to send out so you can give to kids so they can get in the practice of this. And I actually received one from my son. I wish I would from my dad. And I couldn't believe what he wrote. It was something like, this is the best family in the world. I am so glad to be part of it. I mean, these words like, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love you both. And and on this little card, and talk about getting the impact of what I had created. And so every year we try to do something a little different, whether it's to local first responders, or to people in the service, or to mom and dad, or to we did this a couple of years ago, to people you haven't thought about in years that were instrumental in your life, like a teacher, like a mentor, anybody, and write a thank you letter to them. Wow, that got a huge response. So again, the power of giving thanks, of kindness, of politeness, all embodied within this beautiful method of writing a handwritten thank you letter.
It's beautiful. You are beautiful. Your soul is beautiful. You can go to thelegacyletters.com to find out more, to get this book and join the wave, ride the wave, because Carew, you're doing what so many others are as well. You're doing it on your own personal level with your own personal giant stamp on it, both literally and figuratively. Thank you for making the time to be with us this morning. Everybody, go buy this book and write somebody a letter. Tell someone what you're thinking. It goes a long way. Right, Carew? Thank you.
You got it. Yeah, you got it, Lindsay.
Thank you, Carew.